Sport Fishing on the Fly is brought to you by Maui Jim Sunglasses. First Tellurium Corp., the future of mining. And Hardy Rods and Reels. Today on the bench, I'm going to tie you up the red dancer leech as promised. It is one of my favorite leech patterns for an attractor, only because it is jig style. So make sure you have these materials ready before you tie the fly. For the hook, we use a size 12 jig hook, some 6/0 red thread to tie with, a 1/8 inch red slotted tungsten bead for the bead, some black marabou for the tail, some red flashabou for the tail highlights, some medium red holographic tinsel for the body, some medium copper wire for the rib, and a black saddle hackle for the body hackle. So to start the fly off, I put the bead onto the hook, and I'm just going to tie on my thread just to get a base layer set up. Now that we have the thread tied in, I'm going to take a black hackle. I've pulled out the very tip of it. I'm just going to pull all this material together and get a nice tail built. Now I want the tail a little longer. I probably want it about double the length of the hook shank. So there's one, there's two. So I want quite a long tail on this. And you could always trim it back if it is too long, but I like the tail longer. And tie it in. Now the tail's tied in, I've taken 2 strands of my flashabou, my red flashabou, and I'm just going to start about the middle of the hook and just pull 2 down on each side. So you have 2 strands on one side and 2 on the other, and just cut it to the length of the tail. Then you got some tail highlights. Now the tail and the highlights are tied in. I'm going to take my copper wire, and black wire works good too, but I prefer the copper. I like a little shine. Tie it in, and we'll keep that off for ribbing the body later. Now we're going to take some of our red holographic tinsel and tie it in just behind the bead. Wrap that in. Wrap it right back to the tail. Then bring your thread forward, and then form the body by wrapping up the tinsel, just covering up all that thread. Now that the body's tied in, I've taken a hackle. I like the hackle length to be about as wide as the gap. So you got the hook gap about that long. I'm just going to tie it in right behind the bead. Take a few wraps there, tie it in good. Snip off your excess. Then I'm just going to take one wrap right near the head, and then I'm going to palmer it back. And I'm only going to palmer it like probably 3 to 4 times. That's it. I don't want a real bushy body on this fly. Once I get to the back, I'm going to take my wire and just start wrapping over the hackle just to form the rib. And as you wrap it, try not to trap too many hackle fibers. Then windmill off your wire, which is a good, nice, clean way to get off the wire, and then snip off your hackle at the tail. Now what we're going to do is form a little bit of head on the fly. I want a red head on this along with the bead. So just take a few wraps there, and then whip finish to finish off the fly. So there it is, the Red Dancer Leech. You definitely want this in your fly box because it is one of the best jig leech patterns that we have to date.